Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday Apocryphal Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything Friday Apocryphal and podcast. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we are covering Ahikar, the narrative.
The narrative portion, I guess. So it doesn't have chapters, but it does have lines. So the way that I guess I have chosen to delineate it is through the amount of lines that we will read. So
how many lines are we reading?
78.
78?
Yeah. It's fairly short.
Why do I have a 1 here?
Because I'm not going to make you go from 1 and I'm not going to make you change it every single
line.
Yeah.
How about I just say Ahikar?
Yeah, I mean, but this is the first half of Ahikar, so that's why
It's broken into 2 sections.
It is. There's the narrative section, and then there's the saying.
You should just
section.
write the narrative section of Ahikar.
Jesus Christ.
It'll be like a whole banner on top of the screen.
And make sure that while reading it, you're scrolling it back and forth across the screen.
I could try.
Don't actually. That'd look atrocious.
I know how to do it on here.
That it would. So we're reading out of the Old Testament Pseudepigrapha by James H. Charlesworth, Volume 2.
Yeah. So this is, of course, Ahikar. This is a new translation and introduction by J.M. Lindenberger. What these names, man?
All right, Lindenberger.
Yeah. Although, so before we get started,
I'll take
with
a
this,
Lindenberger with cheese.
Yeah, I could go for that.
Yeah.
So before we get into that, Landon got us something.
Oh, not Lyndon, but
No.
Landon.
Yeah, Landon, the man himself, got us a Greek New Testament. I don't know if you want to put that up on the screen there, Chris. But yeah, a Greek New Testament. This is all in Greek, right?
Oh, that's so Greek.
It is Greek, isn't it?
Greek as fuck.
It's probably, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's there.
Pretty well.
So very excited to get into this. Now we're gonna have this, like the actual Greek. This is as much as scholars can reconstruct as far as possible originals go, and it goes along with this textual guide to the Greek New Testament that we have. So very excited to use it. I was like, first of all, this will make sure that my Greek doesn't get rusty, because that definitely happened, during summer. When I wasn't taking Greek.
You should have taken a Greek immersion experience.
Wow. No.
You should have only spoken ancient Greek for
Wow.
all summer.
That would have been atrocious.
It would. But you would be much, much better at ancient Greek.
Fair enough. So yeah, excited to start using that. So once again, thank you, Landon. And yeah, let's get started with Ahikar. So
tell me about this book.
So it is
It will be a fucking banner.
okay. The text known as the Words of Ahikar was one of the best known and most widely disseminated tales in the ancient Mediterranean world. It is also by far the oldest text included in this collection, probably antedating the post-exilic portions of the Old Testament. This dates it well before the period usually assigned to the pseudepigrapha. Furthermore, it is non-Jewish in origin. Thus, Ahikar is not, strictly speaking, a pseudepigraphon in the sense in which that term is applied to the other documents in this volume. Its inclusion here is justified by 2 facts, one relating to its content, the other to its history. In the first place, the work is closely similar in genre, and to some extent in content as well, to the wisdom traditions of the Old Testament and Apocrypha. This gives a special importance for biblical studies. In the second place, it is clear that by the end of the Old Testament period, the story was not only known in some parts of the diaspora, but had even been reworked to portray the pagan sage as a Jew. The oldest extant version, translated here, was found among the ruins of a Jewish settlement in Egypt dating from the 5th century BCE. The author of Tobit evidently knew a version according to which Ahikar was an exiled Jew. Later recensions were in wide circulation in Jewish and Christian circles during the early centuries of the Christian era. So Ahikar, though it was not composed by those who wrote and first read the books of the pseudepigrapha was adopted by them as a story of one of their own. So
yeah, this is what Tobit is based on.
well, I wouldn't say based on.
Well, it takes a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the texts that we have available for this, I mean, we're gonna get into the narrative portion either way. Like he summarizes the narrative, but we're gonna read it, so not really necessary. So the Aramaic text translated here is found in a single papyrus manuscript. Much of it is poorly preserved. It was discovered by the German excavators of ancient Elephantine in 1907. And he mentions some other cataloged ones as well. The present translation is based on an examination of the papyrus original, except for, of the papyrus original compared with the photographs published by Sachau, I don't know how to pronounce that name, in 1911. The transcription of the narrative portion published by Cowley is in general reliable. Divergences from it are noted. For the sayings, the writer's own edition has been used. So, yeah, there are two portions of this. There is the narrative, and then there is the sayings. So, do you remember...
It's like the story of Solomon and Proverbs.
Right. Or I guess in structure, it would kind of resemble the alphabet of Ben Sira, where you have first this story about it, and then you have some sayings. So it's likely that they probably didn't always circulate together, although there is apparently some debate about that. Much later and more elaborate recensions of the Ahikar text are found in versions from the Christian era in Syriac, Arabic, Armenian, Karshuni, and Old Church Slavonic, with fragments in Ethiopic and still later translations into Georgian, Old Turkish, Romanian, Russian, a whole bunch of languages.
What is Karshuni?
I have no idea. Never heard of that one before.
Yeah.
There was also a Greek version, now lost, from which the Slavonic and the Romanian stem. The Greek also served as the basis for a portion of the life of Aesop.
Oh.
Much of the material in these late versions does not parallel the Elephantine text, and they are not reproduced here. Significant parallels are given in the footnotes. This connection between the narrative and the sayings. So in the Syriac and Armenian and other late versions, the wisdom material is inserted into the narrative in two large blocks. So you have, kind of in the midst of the narrative version, you have sayings being put in there. But it seems like the original would have been that they would be separate. They'd be in two different sections. This arrangement seems to be not original. So in the Elephantine text, these sayings were evidently not integrated into the narrative at all. They seem to have been simply collected at the end without any explicit link to the story. The version which lies behind the life of Aesop represents an intermediate state in the integration of the sayings and the narrative. And even in the late versions, there is a certain artificiality about the position of the sayings.
So basically, it's like a shitty sequel that got tacked on.
I guess it would be hard to call it a sequel, because it's just a bunch of sayings, really. I guess it is a shitty sequel.
Yeah.
Like the worst kind of sequel you could possibly imagine. Like if they took Star Wars and then
did what they did to it.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know, but no,
if
it was
they
worse.
made Luke Skywalker into some asshole who lives on a planet all alone and drinks from the teat of weird aliens.
Like green milk.
Yeah.
And he discards his lightsaber and says, "Nah, fuck it. I'm not doing anything."
No, this would be more like if Luke Skywalker in the sequel was just telling you
staring
things.
at the camera
Yes.
and doing random sayings.
Yep. It would be like that. Wouldn't that be horrible
That's
and hardly a sequel?
That's the David Lynch version of Empire Strikes Back that we never got.
All right, so let's talk about the original language. So it was probably in Aramaic, although for a long time people thought it was originally written in Hebrew. eventually, we would find manuscripts and be like, oh, maybe this was written in Akkadian because it has a lot of Akkadian loanwords, a lot of similarities with Akkadian literature. And while that is true, most of the similarities are stuff like names, which would be carried over anyways.
So basically what you're saying is that the sayings are full of like complaining about SJWs.
It's not what I said at all.
Akkadian, like Sargon of
Oh,
Akkad.
okay. You had to remind me. Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Apparently you haven't thought of him in a very long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. Remember when he met Chris?
Yeah.
That was pretty hilarious.
It was pretty hilarious.
Weird.
Yeah.
He like grabbed his face.
And he was like, you need to do something.
Yeah, you are so smart. You have you have an obligation.
It's really annoying to me.
And the thing is, I mean, I agree with that.
I just
You have an
thought
obligation.
It was hilarious.
It was funny.
Yep.
I run this show. Shut up.
An obligation. It was pretty amusing. So the case for an Aramaic original is particularly strong in the Proverbs. Unlike the narrative, they contain virtually no Akkadian loanwords. Some of them contain Aramaic wordplays. Some also show a knowledge of distinctively West Semitic literary conventions, in particular the use of traditional word pairs and poetic parallelism, which would be extremely difficult to account for if the text were a translation from East Semitic Akkadian. In the narrative, evidence for translation from Akkadian is lacking. During the time of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, Akkadian was coming more and more to be displaced by Aramaic as the dominant language of the people in Mesopotamia. Thus, it is most likely that the text in its entirety was composed in Aramaic. So, the date.
When's it from? Tell me when it was written.
Well, it talks about Nebuchadnezzar, so after the time of Nebuchadnezzar, or during.
Okay.
So
That's a pretty broad range.
It is, yeah. So the earliest possible date for the narrative is produced by the mention of Esarhaddon. Sorry, not Nebuchadnezzar, my bad. Esarhaddon.
Oh,
Got it mixed up. I was thinking of a different book.
you messed up, man.
I did.
Oh, no.
So Esarhaddon was the guy that's mentioned. And he reigned 681. Holy shit.
The earliest possible date for the narrative is provided by the mention of Esarhaddon, reigned 681 through 669 BC.
Nice, yeah.
The gnomic portion of the text has no historical allusions, but the more archaic flavor of the language of the sayings indicates that they are at least as old as the narrative, and probably older, since the imperial Aramaic of the Persian period, and later I was phrasing that strangely because of the way that it's written here. Since the imperial Aramaic of the Persian period and later shows a great many Persian words, the absence of such Persian loans in Ahikar suggests a date of composition before the mid-6th century. Both parts of the text and probably the editorial joining of them must have been fixed in writing during the latter 7th or early 6th century BC.
All right. I have returned. That was, I had to spit something out there.
Good job.
It was gross, but it's gone now. Everything should be fine. Everything's fine.
Wonderful.
Dad.
It's COVID.
I don't think it is.
Okay.
I think it's just the fact that I smoke a lot. So the exact provenance of the text is not known. Though the manuscript was found in Egypt, it is most unlikely that it was composed there. It would probably be composed in the Babylonian world,
Yes.
and but apparently it got around to everywhere. It formed like a really, really strong basis for a whole lot of stories that we've heard of. And some of them we've even read on the show.
So we're gonna run into like some Joseph Campbell type shit here with your hero's journey.
A little bit, not like a lot.
Well, we had in not Ahikar, Tobit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So until fairly recently, most scholars considered the story of Ahikar to be pure folklore and the hero to be a literary creation of the unknown author. Sennacherib and Esarhaddon are, of course, well-known historical figures. The name Ahikar, sometimes vocalized Ahukar, occurs in cuneiform texts of the Neo-Assyrian period, as do the names Nadine and Nabusumiskun. And that's going to be a hard one to say,
Nabusumiskun.
I guess.
That'd be real easy.
Probably butchering it. In fact, there was a Nadine accused of subversive activities during the reign of Ashurbanipal, and Esarhaddon is known to have had a high-ranking army officer named Nabusumiskun. See, I'm butchering it again. Nabusumiskun. But while these persons could conceivably be identified with the characters of the Ahikar story, the names are rather common, and the cuneiform texts never associate the various individuals with one another. So the apparent correspondence may be mere coincidence. The question of the historicity of Ahikar has more recently been thrown into a new perspective by the discovery at the site of ancient Uruk, which is like the first civilization, I'm pretty sure. Or I guess that would be like the Indus Valley.
It's pretty old.
It's really old. Like it's older than Babylon, and it's I think it was even
almost as old as Atlantis.
Yeah, not quite. It's Atlantis. Ancient Uruk, of a cuneiform tablet in which the name appears in a context which immediately links it to the Aramaic story. The Akkadian text from the Seleucid period is a list of a number of distinguished court scholars, umanu, and I think that I've seen that also translated as sage, of various Babylonian and Assyrian kings. The relevant line reads, "In the time of King Esarhaddon, Abba Enlil-Dari," I don't know what that means, "whom the Arameans call Ahukar, was Umanu." The name, nationality, role, and date in the cuneiform and Aramaic traditions match, making it appear extremely likely that there was, in fact, such an Ahikar at the Assyrian court, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So it may be possible to go even beyond this. A number of the Umanu listed are noted Mesopotamian literary figures. Among them are reputed authors of the Gilgamesh epic and the Exaltation of Inanna. This suggests that Ahikar too was remembered in Mesopotamia, not only as an official of Esarhaddon, but also as an author. This is not to say that the details of the story are necessarily historical. Much of the narrative is characteristic of folklore, in particular the themes of the ungrateful nephew and the downfall and restoration of a minister are known elsewhere in Mesopotamian literature. Much less does it demonstrate that the historical Ahikar was the author of our story, but it does suggest that the story is not pure fiction. It is better classified as a historical novel, or still better, as a literary folktale about a historical figure. And we've seen a lot of those. But yeah, I mean, we'll get into the theological importance. We'll see it when we see it. It'll be there.
Yes.
But the importance of the Ahikar text, actually, this part I will cover a little bit. The relation to the canonical books. That part I'm going to cover.
Right, because we know its relation to Tobit.
Right. So, and of course, the wisdom literature is one thing, especially with those sayings. So if it is important in dealing with any questions of literary comparison to distinguish between parallels and influence, it is doubly important when treating material from the realm of wisdom and folklore. Folk themes, figures of speech, and entire proverbs migrate across geographical and cultural boundaries by routes which are often impossible to trace or document. Parallels, even quite close ones, between books such as Ahikar and the canonical and apocryphal books may indicate nothing whatever about the direct knowledge of one document by the author of another. In every case, the burden of proof is on the one who would claim to see signs of literary influence. Leaving aside wisdom themes, which are common to biblical and ancient Near Eastern wisdom, close parallels between the Elephantine Ahikar and the canonical books are very few. The address, "My Son," remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. simply belongs to wisdom diction. It is found in Near Eastern texts as old as the 3rd millennium BCE. Similarly, the form of the numerical proverb. Oh, yeah, there are 2 things and a third. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about this recently.
Right, when we were talking about Atlantis.
Yeah, we were talking about Atlantis.
Yeah. So in the Timaeus, I'm pretty sure it was the Timaeus, when Critias is talking about Solon going to Egypt, and in Sais talking to this priest in Sais who references 8,000 years ago, we Egyptians were created, and 9,000 years ago, the Atlanteans were around, right?
Yeah.
So,
and then we talked about ships.
yes, we did talk about
But the ships at that time would not be able to go out very far.
No, they wouldn't.
So, yeah. But it was, I guess it's a good thing I had a book on ships.
Yeah, I know.
All right, anyways. Yeah, so it contains a lot of the same features as pretty much all of ancient Near Eastern literature. Only in 2 cases are there parallels which justify raising the question of possible dependence. The first is the pair of sayings 3 through 4. Spare not your son from the rod, otherwise can you save him from wickedness. If I beat you, my son, you will not die, but I will leave you alone. You will not live. But if I leave you alone, you will not live. Compare Proverbs 23, 13 through 14. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you beat him with a rod, he will not die. If you beat him with the rod, you will save his life from Sheol. That's a pretty close parallel.
Yes. It is an extremely close parallel.
Yeah. Though parental discipline and desirability of corporal punishment are common enough themes in wisdom literature, the close verbal similarity, even closer in the original than appears in translation, is greater than could be accounted for by any similarity of theme alone. It cannot be claimed that either saying is borrowed from the other, but it is likely that some common oral or written tradition underlies both. So that's how closely the story of Ahikar and biblical text can be related. And then, of course, we have Tobit as well, which we have discussed.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to point out that the Proverbs, they say to beat your children, but the 11 satanic rules of earth say never to hit a child.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know. That's crazy, man.
Hail Satan. Okay. So we can probably get into the narrative portion of the text. And so I'm going to hand that off to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me do this.
But, that's, here's this. You might want that. But yeah, so at some point, he's going to hand it back to me. It's not like a long reading today, but because it's such an important ancient text, we figured it'd be important to cover. And it does have that close relation to Hebrew literature.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just all Hebrew literature.
Well, I mean,
All of it.
yeah. Even if it's not directly, it's
Okay. There are a lot of footnotes,
yeah, I'm sure.
so we'll be breaking off from the narrative fairly frequently here.
All right.
All right. Ahikar 1. The narrative. This subsection is called Introduction.
Wow. Amazing. That's brilliant. That's just top tier writing right there.
Yes. These are the words of one Ahikar, a wise and skillful scribe, which he taught his son. Yeah, so the ancient Near Eastern scribe, no mere copyist, was a master of the literary arts and a learned scholar. Such persons were often sought out by kings to serve as advisors and officials. The Akkadian text in which Ahikar's name appears describes him as Umanu,
Yep, that's
scholar savant of Ashardon. Yep. Now, he did not have offspring of his own, but he said, I shall nevertheless have a son.
Good luck with that one.
That's a bit delusional.
I mean, you could adopt.
Yeah. Prior to this, Ahikar had become a great man. He had become counselor of all Assyria and keeper of the seal of Sennacherib, king of Assyria. And let me see. Keeper of the seal is literally bearer of the signet ring. Compare.
So he's like his notary, I guess. I don't know.
Ahikar's titles in the Syriac version include sage and secretary.
Secretary work, yeah.
Secretary and Great Seal. And the titles in Tobit 121 through 22. The exact background of the title in the Elephantine text has been much debated, but it isn't gone into detail here. Okay. He used to say, I may not have any sons, but Sennacherib, king of Assyria, relies on my counsel and advice. Now
So he sees himself as a father figure to Sennacherib?
I guess so.
All right.
He nevertheless has a son,
I guess.
even though he doesn't have a son. And I guess it's Sennacherib, king of Assyria.
Or maybe it's like when friends now say my boy. Like Ruben's my boy.
Is that how that works?
No.
No. No.
I'm stretching hard here.
Yeah, you are. We're in another subsection. The death of Sennacherib, Ahikar trains his nephew to succeed him. At that time, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, died, and his son Asharadan arose and became king in Assyria in place of his father Sennacherib. The late recensions generally invert the order of Sennacherib and Asharadan.
Wow, I feel like that's a problem.
Yeah. At least in this line.
Okay.
Then I said to myself, I am growing old. You just imagine.
Yeah, that's what old people do. They just say to themselves, man, I'm old.
You ever see an old
do
person who's
that.
just like sitting around and then out of nowhere they're like, I am growing old.
Not quite.
No.
Like I've said I'm getting old.
Yeah.
Like when your bones start to hurt.
Your bones.
Jesus.
Yep.
Lawrence is here like, where's my walker?
Yeah.
We just go do 6 backflips and find it for you.
Yeah. So I sent for my nephew so that he might succeed me at my death and become scribe and keeper of the seal for King Asharadan, just as I was for Sennacherib,
So he's training his
king
nephew.
of Assyria.
Yeah, so he's training his nephew to take over his position.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then I adopted Nadine, my nephew, as my son. I reared him and trained him and taught him wisdom. And I was generous to him and installed him in the palace gate with me before the king in the midst of his courtiers.
So is this a different one, or is that just his name?
Nadine
Yeah.
or Nadine.
Yeah. However you pronounce it.
This is the first mention of Nadine.
Okay. Well, because he was talking about his nephew.
This is his nephew.
Okay.
His nephew, Nadine,
Gotcha.
got adopted by him
Yeah.
as his son.
Okay.
Now we're in another subsection. Nadine is presented to Asharadan. I brought him before Asharadan, king of Assyria, and the king questioned him concerning wisdom, and he told him everything he asked. Then Asharadan, king of Assyria, gave him his approval and said to me, May your life be prolonged, O wise scribe, counselor of all Assyria, who raised up his nephew to be his son, since he had no son of his own. When the king of Assyria said this, I, Ahikar, bowed low in obeisance to Asharadan, king of Assyria.
Yeah, so I guess he approves of this new guy.
Yeah, well, first he tested him, right?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, tell me your wisdom.
Yeah, tell me your wise things. Say something smart.
I guess would just be Ahikar's wisdom because
Yeah, it
he
would be.
trained him.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, wow, that's just what Ahikar used to say.
Yeah. Now we have another subsection. Nadine succeeds Ahikar at the court. Sometime later, when I, Ahikar, saw that Ashardon, king of Assyria, was favorably disposed, I addressed the king and said, I served your father, King Sennacherib, who ruled before you. Then there's a break. In this break, Grellet inserts the sayings at this point.
Oh, okay.
Though the original sequence of colons in the fragmentary papyrus is not known, Grellet's arrangement is hardly plausible. By this point in the story, the young man has already been instructed in wisdom. This point is simply the continuation of the audience with Ashardon.
So I would assume that, like, you know, it might help with like if you want to get a different point across, you can include the sayings in the narrative. Like if you're like telling the story, so it might like, you know, emphasize something else. So that'd be why I guess some of the sayings were placed there.
Right. Now I am growing old. I can no longer perform my duties in the palace gate or continue my service to you. But my son Nadine has grown up. And there's a footnote. Literally, behold!
Behold!
Oh.
Amazing. Oh my God.
And
And a footnote?
his name,
Yeah.
my son, has grown up.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Weird way to say it, but all right.
Yeah. Let him succeed me as scribe and counselor for all Assyria, and let him be keeper of the seal for you, for I have taught him my wisdom and counsel. Ashardon, king of Assyria, replied to me, very well, your son shall be scribe and counselor and keeper of the seal for me, in your place. He shall do your work for me. Now when I, Ahikar, heard him promise this, I went back home and went into retirement there. Now we're in another subsection.
Great.
The treachery of Nadine.
Uh-oh.
And as for this son of mine, whom I had reared and installed in the palace gate before Ashardon, king of Assyria, in the midst of his courtiers, I thought, he will promote my welfare just as I did his. But then my nephew, whom I reared, devised a wicked plot against me and thought to himself, this is what I can say to the king. This old Ahikar, who was keeper of the seal for your father, King Sennacherib, is subverting the land against you, for he is a wise counselor and scribe on whose counsel and advice all Assyria used to rely.
So he's suggesting that that Ahikar he has this conspiracy to take over the place.
Yeah, and his motivation isn't exactly clear here.
I'm guessing from what was already said, power, like
Right.
just general.
He's already been handed all of the power. Right.
Sorry. The okay. So the motivation of Nadine.
You're right.
Okay.
I guess he's like maybe something like, well, people won't take me as seriously as long as he's alive.
Like I guess, yeah. Like if Ahikar is dead, then people would take him more seriously, even though he's already been installed in that position.
Mm-hmm. Then, when Ashardon hears my report, he will be greatly enraged and will order Ahikar killed. So, when this false son of mine had devised this lie against me, ...
Oh, is there a textual break there?
Yeah, the end of this line must have related briefly how the plot was carried out, and Ahikar was denounced for treason. The late versions elaborate considerably on the plot. Nadine forges letters in Ahikar's name to the kings of Persia and Egypt, offering to surrender Assyria to them if they will meet him at a specified rendezvous.
Wow.
At the same time, he writes a letter to Ahikar purporting to be from the king, ordering the sage to muster his troops and meet him in the spot named in the letters to the foreign kings. The nephew then shows the king copies of the letters to Egypt and Persia and takes him to the rendezvous to show him Ahikar with all his forces drawn up as final proof of the old man's treachery.
So I guess in those other versions, we get that huge elaboration on the story.
Right.
That would have been cool to read. Like, even if this is, more likely the original, then, I guess I'm glad we're not reading all that other stuff, but it would be interesting to see how they change it up.
Right. Now, this next section goes on to this point.
Yeah, and then
so
you can hand it over to me.
I'll hand it over to you after. This section is called Ahikar is placed under the death sentence.
Oh, no.
Yep. Then Ashardon, king of Assyria, flew into a rage and said, "Bring me Nabusumiskun, one of my father's officers, who was on his staff." On his staff literally is translated as "who ate my father's bread," but it's implied that he's part of his cabinet or something like that.
Yeah.
Then the king said to Nabusumiskun, "Seek Ahikar out, and wherever you find him, kill him. Otherwise, that old Ahikar, wise scribe and counselor of all Assyria that he was, is liable to subvert the land against us." When the king of Assyria had said this, he appointed 2 other men with him to observe how the execution should be carried out. Then officer Nabusumiskun rode away on a swift horse accompanied by those men. And yeah, that's
All right.
the end of that section, and I'll hand it off to you,
Great. Okay.
where you get to say Nabusumiskum over and over again.
Yep, I suppose I do, don't I? And the thing about, and by the way, that was, you just finished line 39. So that was 39 lines. Yeah, so this, man, he's being a real asshole here.
Yeah, he
just
is.
throwing his adopted father under the bus.
Right.
Yeah, for no apparent reason. But I guess we'll figure out what's going on here. Let's try to get to the bottom of it. Okay. So, Ahikar is found and hears of Nadine's treachery. Also, if you guys are enjoying the stream so far, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't. We do the show all the time. We weren't here last week. How you feeling?
Fine.
He's feeling fine now. That's good.
Click
And
the bell.
the bell is really important. Yeah.
Ring it.
If you click the bell, then you might get notified, more likely to get notified.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool if you were here, I guess.
There you go.
That was a bell.
Lawrence, have you clicked the bell?
Why would I click the bell? I know exactly.
Be a lot cooler if you did.
I clicked the bell because then I know we went live.
Okay.
You know, as the stream director guy here, like, yeah, kind of good to know.
To know if
Right.
everything's working.
Worked.
Right.
So anyways, after 3 days had gone by, he and the other men accompanying him caught sight of me as I was walking along among the vineyards, just casually strolling in the vineyards.
Tiptoe through the tulips.
Yep. As soon as Officer Nabusumiskun saw me, he tore his cloak and lamented, "Is it you, O wise scribe and master of good counsel, who used to be a righteous man, and on whose counsel and advice all Assyria used to rely? Your son, whom you reared, whom you installed in the palace gate, has denounced you. He has ruined you and turned on you wickedly." So aside from like all the textual breaks in here,
It looks like Nabusumiskum is still kind of on Ahikar's side,
he is, yeah.
despite getting a direct order from his king.
Yep. He obviously knows this guy. But the thing is, I don't know why he would ask, like, "Is it you, O wise scribe?" Like, you were just told to get Ahikar.
You know what he looks like.
You know exactly who you're looking for, man. Either way, Ahikar asks to be spared. That's the next section.
Of course he does.
Yeah, right. Suddenly, I, Ahikar, was afraid, and I answered Officer Nabusumiskun, "Indeed, I am the same Ahikar who once, long ago, rescued you from an undeserved death." That's not what he said or asked, but that's good that we know now.
Yeah, apparently he saved his life.
Yeah, he saved his life once. When King Asaradon's father, Sennacherib, was so angry with you that he sought to kill you, I took you directly to my own house and provided for you there, as a man would care for his own brother. I concealed you from him, saying, "I have killed him," until an opportune time. Wait, what?
So he lied for him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he lied until
Yeah, I
it
guess.
was
Yeah.
convenient to no longer lie.
Yeah, he was saying it to Sennacherib. Okay. I was like, what? Until an opportune time. Then, after a long time, I presented you to King Sennacherib and cleared you of the charges against you in his presence, so that he did you no harm. Indeed, King Sennacherib was grateful to me for having kept you alive rather than killing you. Okay. So he lied to Sennacherib, saying that he killed this dude. And then after some amount of years, he went back to Sennacherib and said, "Hey, I lied, but aren't you glad I didn't kill this dude?"
Yeah.
And Sennacherib was just like, yes.
It's good that you disobeyed my orders and misled me.
Yeah. Oh, wise man. I don't know. It just sounds like a, why would King Sennacherib be so pleased with that?
Right. It seems unlikely.
Like, the thing is, if he was open to, being convinced that this dude was innocent or whatever, then why not just do that before? I guess you got to get the point across that Ahikar saved the dude's life.
Yeah.
Either way, grateful to me for having kept you alive rather than killing you. Now it is your turn to treat me as I treated you. Do not kill me, but take me to your house until the times change. King Asaradon is known to be a merciful man. He will eventually think of me and wish for my counsel, copium.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can bring me to him, and he will let me live. Man, I guess there was just a whole different legal system where you just kind of wait a while, and everything's okay. And with like one guy, with like the one king who apparently you're plotting against, or he believes you're plotting against him.
Well, now he's literally plotting against him. Not like to engage in a coup,
Right.
But like to
to
have a conspiracy against his wishes.
that is accurate.
Sure.
But not in the thing that Asaradon thinks.
Right. Not in the accusation by Nadine.
Yeah. Nabusumiskun agrees, and a ruse is contrived.
Ooh.
That you know what? That's always a good word, ruse.
Yeah.
You don't hear it very often.
Your cunning trick devised to fool the king.
What a ruse.
What a ruse.
Then Officer Nabusumiskun replied to me, "Have no fear, my lord Ahikar, father of all Assyria, on whose counsel King Sennacherib and all the Assyrian army used to rely." Those are some mighty strong words.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's just a textual note here on the reading.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Yeah, but the very strong words, calling him Lord, Father of all Assyria.
Yeah.
What? Maybe it's father in the same way as like the teacher. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like the same way that's used in Proverbs. I don't know.
He's obviously not literally the father.
Obviously, yeah.
Because he didn't have any children.
Facts. At once, Officer Nabusumiskun said to his companions, those two men who were accompanying him, "Listen, come near to me, and I will tell you my plan. And a very good plan it is."
Ooh.
Then those two men replied to him, "You tell us, Officer Nabusimiskun, what you think, and we will obey you." Then Officer Nabusimiskun said in reply to them, "Listen to me. This Ahikar was a great man. He was King Asaradan's keeper of the seal, and all the Assyrian army used to rely on his counsel and advice. Far be it from us to kill him. There is a eunuch slave of mine. Let him be killed between these two mountains in place of this Ahikar."
Wow.
Why kill anyone? It's You think that the king's gonna like walk out there, but
it's not
take long enough that the decomposition would take place, so they'd be like, "Oh, yep, there's a skeleton there. That
Yeah.
must be Ahikar."
Like,
You know, I came here to see a dead body, and if I don't see one, I'm going to be real unhappy, says the king.
first of all, okay, so everyone in this place would know what Ahikar looks like.
especially the king.
Right, especially the king. And even if you first of all, who would go bother to check? So why would you kill somebody?
Yeah, like in
Like
between
somebody
a
else.
couple mountains.
Also,
Yeah.
I don't like this one eunuch. Can you kill him? Is that it? Is that what it is?
Yeah, essentially. Sorry, he's a eunuch slave.
Worse.
So like
Great. He really doesn't like this guy.
Great.
yeah, he's like, you know, yeah, we could just throw this guy to the wolves. It's like, okay, so first of all, who's going to check? If somebody checks, then they're going to see that it's not Ahikar,
Uh-huh.
in which case you fucked yourself.
Stupid and not cunning ploy at all.
This is a horrible plan, actually.
This is the worst plan I've heard
Uh,
from Nabusimiskun.
Yeah, this
wow.
is atrocious.
You've only heard so many.
This is bad. He should really think this out more. Let's hope he does. So, yeah, in place of this Ahikar, when it is reported, the king will send other men after us to see the body of this Ahikar. Then they will see the body of this eunuch slave of mine, and that will be the end of the matter. Until eventually King Asaradan thinks of Ahikar and wishes for his counsel and grieves over him. Okay, so that wouldn't be the end of the matter.
No, it wouldn't.
He says that the king will only send servants to make sure that there's a dead body.
But they would also know what Ahikar looks like because he was like really famous.
Yeah, he was like
Yes.
in the
This is
palace.
really dumb, I know. There's no CSI anything, okay?
Right. It's not like they can have like some DNA testing or
There's
anything.
no crime scene investigation unit to come in and swab the scene. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so eventually he's like, yeah, first of all, why kill this dude? Second of all, it's so he's basically just waiting.
Maybe he
for-
looks somewhat similar.
Maybe.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Then they check, and he's a eunuch.
Well, Ahikar never had any kids.
never had any kids.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's interesting. But Ahikar is not a eunuch.
As much as they know.
He just
I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, maybe he looked a lot like him.
See, that's what we were just
Mm.
saying.
So-
yeah.
Let's see. So, anyways, yeah, they're wait for Asaradan to be like, oh man, I wish Ahikar was here. Then King Asaradan's thoughts will turn to me, and he will say to his officers and courtiers, I would give you riches as numerous as grains of sand if you could find Ahikar. Even though he, like, in this scenario, he would also believe that Ahikar is already dead.
Yes. Can you go find
Yeah.
this dead guy?
Can you go find the dead man, please, so he can help me with my problems? Now this plan seemed good to his two companions.
How?
This is so stupid.
He convinced two people.
Is this Ocean's 1? You know, Ocean's 11 was pretty good. Ocean's 1 was this.
They replied to Officer Nabusimiskun, do as you suggest. Let us not kill him, but you give us that eunuch slave in place of this Ahikar. He shall be killed between these two mountains. This is a horrible plan, but okay.
Awful plan.
Yeah, right.
To
How
start
many?
with the
That's a
Ocean
good
series
question.
somewhere.
That's a good question. How many other people did he fake kill?
Oh, jeez. Maybe he's not a nice guy. Like, maybe that one guy who's accusing him of stuff to the king that he trained. What's his name?
Nadine?
Nadine. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe Nadine's right.
About
Maybe about
Ahikar?
Arhikar, yeah.
I mean, this is Nabusimiskun's plan.
Oh, well, maybe Nabusniskun's bad too then.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Some very serious nepotism going on here.
Yeah.
So Ahikar is hidden and the king is deceived. At that time, word spread through the land of Assyria that Ahikar, King Esarhaddon's scribe, had been put to death. Then officer Nabusimiskun took me to his house and hid me. Indeed, he provided for me there as a man would care for his own brother. And he said to me, bread and water will be provided to my lord. So there's a textual break here. It just says if. And there's a whole portion of missing text. Let's see. He gave me plenty of food and abundant supplies. Then officer Nabusimiskun went to King Esarhaddon and said, I have done as you commanded me. I went and found that Ahikar and put him to death. Now, when King Esarhaddon heard this, he questioned the two men who he had appointed along with Nabusimiskun. And they said, it happened just as he said. Then, while King Esarhaddon... Oh my God.
Well, what's up?
Is
everyone just stupid?
No.
Let me do it.
This section, okay.
Yeah.
Fine, be disappointed.
Then King Esarhaddon. At this point, the narrative breaks off. According to later versions, when the king of Egypt hears that Ahikar is dead, he writes the Assyrian monarch challenging him to send a wise man who can answer a series of riddles and supervise the construction of a palace between heaven and earth. Nadine declares that not even the gods themselves could meet the challenge. The Assyrian is at his wit's end and laments at his lost sage, offering a rich reward if only Ahikar could be returned to him alive. The officer, seeing the time is ripe, brings the old scribe out of hiding to receive the king's profuse apologies and reinstatement at the court. After a series of adventures in Egypt, Ahikar returns to Assyria and asks permission to discipline Nadine. The young man is put in chains and beaten, after which Ahikar addresses him with a long series of reproaches. The speech concluded, Nadine swells up and dies. It cannot be ascertained how much of this was included in the Elephantine version. No doubt it was much shorter. The surviving fragments of the Aramaic text have no trace of the Egyptian episode, and there may have originally been only a rather brief statement of Ahikar's rehabilitation and the disgrace and punishment of his adopted son. So it would be cool to have the series of adventures in Egypt.
Yeah.
And it would be cool to have the rest of the story too. Also,
look like that fell off a cliff, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah, Matthew, good to see you. And make sure to stay safe. Happy New Year. But yeah, it's that is such a disappointment that okay, so I get that they want to stay.
This is the biggest letdown in Friday Apocryphal podcast history.
It's a pretty big one because I was enjoying that. I wanted to see where it went actually.
It fell off a cliff again.
So, final thoughts on the narrative portion of Ahikar.
I wish we had the rest of it.
Seriously.
Because the amount of I think that'd be a really cool if someone becomes an English teacher or something, they can have this as a creative writing thing.
Finish Ahikar,
the narrative portion of Ahikar.
In fact, we could run a contest. You can win a T-shirt.
Maybe.
That's actually an interesting idea.
We'll think about it.
Yeah, I don't know how many people would actually do that, but if you guys want to write some ends,
some fan fiction.
Yeah, some fan fiction of Ahikar, because I enjoyed that narrative. It was kind of stupid, but I liked it.
Yeah. So I found some things interesting in Ahikar. First of all, Nabusimiskim's plan is horrible.
Just a horrendous plan.
I don't really understand Nadine's motivation.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't understand the plan.
There's a lot of tell and don't show.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe when we get into the sayings of Ahikar, we'll see how wise he is. But as it is, all he really does is like raise a kid who turns out pretty bad and ask someone to spare his life.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah. Last Sunday we did not have a show.
Right.
Yeah, but this Sunday we will.
yes, next year.
Yeah, that's right. Next year.
Yeah, man. And, something else I found interesting, they use titles a lot. So, like...
Yeah, he was called
it's
Father
always
of
like,
Assyria. And,
well, not only that, but every time they bring up Ashardon, king of Assyria,
Yeah.
officer, Nabusimiskun, right? They don't drop the title,
Yeah, they
really,
keep the title.
every single time.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That is an interesting feature. Man, boy, do I wish we had the rest of it though.
Yeah, there's like a riddle thing, adventures in Egypt, building a thing between Earth and the heavens.
And then Nadine dies.
Nadine gets beaten to death while Ahikar scolds him.
Oh yeah, it's what a book. Wish there was more.
Yep. But yeah, that's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Next time we'll be reading
The sayings. Yeah.
And on Sunday we'll be reading about Jesus.
Yeah. Good old Jesus stuff, and we'll be reading Jesus stuff with
Landon.
also yes, with Landon, and with a Greek New Testament.
Yeah.
So that should be a good time.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed the stream today, give us a like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, family, neighbors. Check us out on our Amazon wish list. Tons of books on there. You could buy us books. Check us out on Patreon. Tons of rewards on there. T-shirt giveaways. You could be on the show. You can be in our patron-only hangouts. You could buy yourself a T-shirt if you don't want to get in a T-shirt giveaway.
Yeah, so the one that's actually pinned, I think, is a hoodie.
It's not even a T-shirt. Look at that. Isn't it incredible?
It's nice, I think.
Are you not entertained?
And let's see what else we got. If you don't want to become a patron to get into the T-shirt giveaway, you can just get yourself a T-shirt.
I just said that.
Did you? Okay.
Literally.
And Facebook and
just
Twitter.
Yeah, Facebook and Twitter.
Facebook and Twitter.
Free to follow us there.
MilwaukeeAtheist@gmail.com.
Lawrence Diss Tracks.
Ahikar fanfiction.
Ahikar fanfic.
Yeah, Ahikar conclusions.
Yeah.
Finish the story.
Finish the story. We'll take your emails.
Yeah, and
That being said,
I think it would be. I think that'd be an interesting idea to get people to watch this episode because they'd have to watch this
Yeah.
and then
We'll make a video for Ahikar fanfiction.
if it works.
This is a call to arms.
yeah, you could call it that. All right. Either way, thanks everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the fragmentary story
Yeah.
of Ahikar, the narrative portion. Anyways.
I like how he's literally like, yeah, there's other versions of this that tell this cool story, but I'm not going to print it.
because they're not original.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it would be, yeah, we are just completely left in the dark about what is actually original. But either way, maybe we'll look up some different endings after the show. But thanks everyone for joining us, and we will
See you next year.
next year on Sunday.
Yeah.
because that's next year also.